Veracruz, a busy port on the coast of Mexico. After a day at sea, a local fisherman prepares a meal for himself and tastes the fish as it is cooking. It doesn't taste quite right, he muses, but he gives it no great thought. It'll be fine with a bit of seasoning. He returns to stir in the concoction, but suddenly he gasps, grabs his stomach and collapses to the floor in agony. The Far Distant Dead, written by John Lucarotti, produced by Leonard White, and directed by Peter Hammond. Some months later, en route to England from Chile, Dr. David Keel has stopped off in Mexico City after learning of the devastation caused there by a violent cyclone. The city and its environs have suffered extensive damage. Several hundred lives have been lost, and many of the lucky ones that have survived have lost their homes, possessions and livelihoods. Keel realises that disease is an immediate and pressing concern, and meets with the local police chief, a thick-set man called Luis Garcia, to offer his services as a doctor. As they discuss a route to the hardest-hit areas, another doctor with a similar idea is also waiting to see the chief. She introduces herself to Keel as Dr. Ampara Alvarez Sandoval, and the two doctors agree that their aid efforts will be best served by their travelling together. They are both keen to give as much assistance as they possibly can to the victims. Despite severe damage to the roads, Keel and Ampara soon reach one of the villages hit by the cyclone. They begin treating the wounded at a hastily set-up emergency hospital, dealing with broken limbs and internal injuries as best they can with the limited resources available. But then their attention is attracted by another relief worker. The medic is very concerned about a patient he has found in a ward. The man appears to be suffering from acute food poisoning. Puzzled by this, Keel asks what the man had been eating before the illness had struck, and discovers that, although the food he had was fresh, it was being fried in oil donated as part of the relief appeal. Testing the oil, Keel realises that the substance is actually hydraulic fluid, extremely poisonous if ingested. Curious to know how the fluid ended up in cooking oil cans, he asks around and finds it had been innocently donated by a local warehouse man, an old Mexican known as Godoy. Clearly a decent and honest man, Godoy is distraught over the indisputable fact that the cooking oil he had held in storage for such a long time was obviously not only mislabelled, but also poisonous to boot. The oil had been in store awaiting collection by an unknown customer who had ultimately not appeared. When the cyclone struck, he thought the right thing to do in the absence of the customer was to donate the oil canisters to the villagers to help bolster their scarce supplies. Meanwhile, a mysterious man posing as a journalist is in the village, taking photographs. This stranger quietly returns to Mexico City and contacts his boss, the mysterious merchant, to inform the businessman that someone has discovered the true nature of the cooking oil. Keel and Ampara have also returned to the city on the trail of the hydraulic fluid. Once there, they meet with Police Chief Garcia. After some considerable investigation, he has found a report of a man dying from similar poisoning in the coastal town of Veracruz some months earlier. The two doctors travel to Veracruz and speak with the dead man's widow. She tells them that her husband died after cooking his meal with some oil that had been stolen from a tramp steamer, and gives details of the ship to the doctors. A quick visit to the local steamer company reveals that the shipment had originated from Marseille, so Keel and Ampara fly to France, where they plan to continue their investigation. Once they have arrived in Marseille, Keel and Ampara visit a police station and meet with Inspector Gauvreau. They explain to him the reason for their visit and the need for urgency. Gauvreau goes through his files with Keel, but the research is not fruitful. Keel and Ampara find no new information, so the two doctors go to their hotel to rest for the evening. Unknown to them, their presence has been noticed by another man, Rayner, who also works for the mysterious merchant. Rayner calls his boss to report that Doctors Keel and Sandoval are in town, snooping around. He comments that they appear not to have found anything yet, but that their type won't give up. Rayner passes along details of the hotel the doctors are staying at. A little while later, Ampara enters her room at the hotel and hears a noise. Someone attempts to attack her, but she fights back and with Keel's help overpowers the assailant. The man initially refuses to talk, but Keel and Ampara are not in the mood for playing games. Ampara threatens the intruder with a handgun and Keel grabs him. Under the stress of interrogation, the man's resolve weakens quickly, and he is persuaded to reveal his name, Karen, and that he knows the source of the deadly fluid, Zeebrugge. Inspector Gauvreau arrives, and Keel tells him that following up on the information extracted from Karen, he is shortly to travel onwards to Zeebrugge, the Belgian port. Gauvreau asks if Karen specifically mentioned Belgium. Ampara responds that all he would say was Zeebrugge. Gauvreau thinks it is more likely that Karen was referring to a person. There is a local import-export man named Hercule Zeebrugge, who would just as easily fit the bill. Keel suggests that the three of them, backed by a handful of gendarmes, should pay a visit to Mr. Zeebrugge. Gauvreau agrees, but Ampara makes her apologies. She feels she has remained too long in France, and her duty is back in Mexico with the cyclone victims. She makes preparations to leave while Gauvreau and Keel finalise details for their evening rendezvous. A short while later, Rayner visits his boss. He has been keeping the medics under surveillance and tells Zeebrugge that the doctors appear to be giving up and leaving Marseille. Just at that moment, Zeebrugge hears an unexpected noise and sends Rayner to investigate. After Rayner has left, Zeebrugge is surprised by the sudden appearance of Ampara Sandoval. She has broken in, having deceived Keel and Gauvreau. She is convinced that Zeebrugge is the merchant trafficking the hydraulic fluid, and is enraged by the suffering and death that his money-making operation has caused. Ampara intends to exact revenge for her country's dead, and pulls a gun on the crook. She threatens Zeebrugge and destroys some of his precious art collection in an effort to show just how serious she is. But just as the female doctor is about to kill Zeebrugge, Keel arrives at the house, having become suspicious of Ampara's sudden departure. He deals with Rayner, who he finds at the gate, and intervenes in the nick of time, preventing Ampara from shooting the unscrupulous merchant, as she would surely be arrested for murder. A moment later, the French police arrive, just as Keel had arranged. Zeebrugge and Rayner are arrested on charges of exporting dangerous materials and causing several deaths in Mexico. Keel leads Ampara away by the hand, satisfied that justice has been served.